Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 was just filled with pain, especially when it came to the Shibuya Incident Arc. Since the season is over, it's finally time to talk about all the episodes, what happened during it, and all the big key moments that impacted the story. So first of all, with all the sad stuff that was happening during this arc, it was still epic. Some absolutely amazing fights took place during it, even though some of them weren't fully animated because of what was going on behind the scenes at MAPPA. But even with everything going on, the animators did some amazing work with this season. The story itself had so many things happen that I just wasn't expecting, like Gojo getting sealed, and just the amount of people who died in Shibuya. However, no one suffered as much as Yuji while he watched his friends die right in front of him, and all the death that Sukuna caused while he took over the body. And even with those things, it just wasn't enough. Geto just had to unleash all the curses onto the world, making Japan a post-apocalyptic because they had curses running around killing people, and now the normal people can also see curses, and just everything is in mass chaos. And in only so many arcs, the Jujutsu Kaisen world has been changed so much. And it's just insane how much has happened, and I just know it's gonna get worse from here because at the end we have Yuta finally coming back and he's gonna execute Yuji. Just so much going on here that just keeps leading from one to another with some dark stuff happening to Yuji. He can never get a break, and it's just sad times for him. And in the end, the Shibuya Incident Arc managed to be some of the best anime I've watched all year. Now, as we go through this story, we gotta talk about some of the big freaking moments that happened during this, like Gojo and Geto's fates, because we've known that Geto's body has been walking around, especially after watching Jujutsu Kaisen 0. We saw Gojo kill him. It wasn't revealed that it wasn't Geto in season 1 until this season, where we see his body's been taken over by this literal brain inside his head, which is so freaky in itself. But I really did like how Geto's soul was still in there, and he was able to react a little bit, because Gojo was able to reach into his best friend, questioning why he's letting this thing take over his body and control him, when the Suguru Geto he knows would never allow that. So I really like how they teased that as well, because maybe there's a chance in the future for Geto coming back and reclaiming his body in a way. Plus, you have Gojo getting sealed, the power dynamic in the Jujutsu Kaisen world being shifted because one of their strongest sorcerers has now been trapped away. I really did like the lead into that, where Gojo was just absolutely demolishing the curses while they were slaughtering everyone around them, and he just obliterated Hanami with no problem. And that all led to Mihito and Choso wanting to kill Yuji and Nobara, and then Jogo wanting to bring Sukuna back. So even though the curses were working with Geto and having their own goals, they all decided to go on their different paths just to see who would win first, which then led into Yuji eating more fingers because he lost to Choso and almost dies, and then Mimiko and Nanako give him the fingers as well to try to wake him up and get Sukuna to help them so that they can stop Geto's body from running around when it's not actually him. But of course that doesn't work out well for them because no one orders Sukuna around, especially no measly humans, so he's gonna slaughter them because Jogo also put in 10 more fingers, which at this point Yuji has almost eaten all the fingers for Sukuna, which I think is insane how quickly this has progressed. And Sukuna literally destroys all of Shibuya while fighting Jogo and Makura. So just absolutely insane how he got released, and we got to see some of his real freaking power, just showing how freaking strong he is, leaving a giant crater and also traumatizing Yuji some more. And speaking of fighting, we gotta talk about all the different fights that happened during this season, because like I said before, we had Gojo versus the curses where he absolutely obliterated Hanami, but it was cool to see Choso fighting him and using his blood techniques, because it was just an awesome fight to see Gojo realize he can't save everyone and he kind of has to focus on the curses, otherwise more people are gonna die. And the speed he was moving at just shows how big of a threat he is, and the only thing that was able to stop him was being too stunned to speak once he saw Geto's body standing in front of him after he knew he had killed him. When we had the Nanami versus Haruta fight, and not much needs to be said about that fight, but goddamn, Nanami was not taking shit. After Haruta hurt Nobara, Nanami was just in full rage mode and just absolutely kicked the shit out of him. It was just a great moment, I think we can all agree on that. But in the end, rip Nanami. Toji versus Dagon was freaking awesome. Just having Toji come in through the rift, take the playful Cloud, and absolutely wreck Dagon like no tomorrow looked awesome, especially when he broke them and used them to stab Dagon. Honestly, an epic fight, just absolutely showing how he's a murder machine and how he was directed to kill by being summoned by the old grandma in the beginning. I totally thought at that moment too that after he had come back, he had fully come back, but we learned afterwards that that wasn't true. And I thought when he came there to fight, he was going to save his son, he could sense him and all that, which wasn't true. He was just looking for the most powerful threat to take down, because that that's what he was programmed to do when he was brought into this body. However, that in itself shows that people can come back with curse techniques. So I don't think it's going to be the last time we see of Toji, and I'm sure he has come back in the manga, so don't spoil that for me. But it's actually really cool to see how different things can be done and resurrect or summon people in different ways. But that also led into the Megumi versus Toji fight, which was pretty cool because we knew Toji was going after the strongest person, which meant Megumi was the strongest next to everyone else after he defeated Dagon. And that fight was cool in itself, just showing how Megumi was able to outmaneuver his father, even though he was having a little bit of a hard time doing it. And I like where it led in the end with Toji, but we'll talk about that in a bit when we get to that part of the video, because we also got to talk about probably one of the best fights from this arc, and that's Yuji versus Choso. Because first of all, it looked beautiful. This was probably one of the best animated fights during this arc, just because of that cinematic feel, the colors, the lighting, everything looked so freaking nice while it was happening. And just seeing how strong Choso was while he was fighting Yuji, and having Mekumaru come in to help Yuji kind of figure out how to fight Choso, trying to dilute the blood with water, was a very tactical thing to do, and Yuji wouldn't have been able to do it himself if Mekumaru wasn't there to help him. However, both characters were fighting with all their strengths, because one was trying to avenge his brothers after Yuji murdered them, and the other one was trying to stop this super powerful adversary from getting past him, because then his friends would be in danger. And I liked how both were fighting for their lives to stop the other one. But in the end, Yuji ended up losing that battle, just showing how strong Choso is, but also showing how Sukuna was pissed that Yuji had lost, because Sukuna knows that Yuji is strong, and he lost. He was disappointed in him. But then that led into Choso having these feelings of killing his brother, because him and Yuji are connected. And I thought that was really interesting in itself. And as we find out later, they are brothers in a way, and I'm very interested to finding out more when we dive deeper into that storyline and how Choso and Yuji are related, especially because they're like 150 years apart. Then of course we had the two big Sukuna fights with him versus Jogo, which looked awesome as well, with animation just being top tier as well. One of the other best animated fights during this season, and just showing how strong Jogo really is, because when we first met him, he didn't seem that strong. Gojo just mopped the floor with him like no tomorrow, ripped off his head, and just made him look like he was weak. But then in this, we got to see he can go toe to toe with Sukuna. And even though he lost that fight in the end, Sukuna was still impressed with his strength, because not a lot of people have been able to fight like that. And then when we had the Sukuna versus Makura fight, it also just showed how Megumi has the power to fight Sukuna with his shadow technique, and having this god appear, who in the end absolutely demolished Shibuya fighting Sukuna, because he's able to adapt to anything and everything. But then Sukuna won using his malevolent shrine, and I probably mispronounced that completely, but it was freaking insane to watch him relentlessly slash the Shikigami before finishing off with another method and a powerful flaming arrow that incinerated the divine general. So just an absolutely epic fight, and then watching Sukuna save Megumi because he has plans for him just sets up so much for the future, which I'm so looking forward to. And also the fact that we had Yuji versus Mahito ×2 in this was awesome. The first time he stays cool after losing Nanami in order to fight, but then when he lost Nobara, he couldn't do it anymore. He lost it, with Mahito absolutely coming in and kicking the shit out of Yuji and being able to take him down with no problem, because he's now a broken person. Even Mahito turning around and saying that they're the same. Mahito likes to kill humans without a second thought, and Yuji will kill curses without a second thought. And I love the fact that he agrees in the end, because Yuji will kill curses without thinking, because he's the predator and the curses are the prey. And he's determined that Mahito will no longer get to live because he's caused too much death. And if he comes back, Yuji will track him down and kill him again. So I really like how they set that up. And the second fight with Todo coming in was just absolutely amazing. Having Todo save Yuji, having him hype him up, bring him back into the fight, and reminding him if Yuji just gave up there, he would be defiling the death of his comrades and his friends, because they chose to become sorcerers. They knew what the risk was, and Yuji needs to continue to fight, because that's the one punishment, is for them to live. If they don't keep fighting, then more people are put in danger. And also, they entrusted stuff to Yuji. Nanami told him that it's time for him to take it from here, trusting Yuji to take on the fight, and Nobara saying life wasn't so bad, showing Yuji that even though she died in front of him, the life she got to have was worth it. So it means Yuji needs to continue to fight so that he could have the life that's worth it for him as well. And I really like how it grew Yuji in this moment, because Yuji even tells Nanami that he'll take his share of suffering, realizing he has to be stronger. When Nanami gets to rest, so he has to take on that pain. And then just having Todo, Yuji, and Mahito all level up from this fight was sick. And I just love the animation during these scenes, because it was just epic. But I was scared for a moment that Todo was going to die, especially after Mahito touched him and he just cut off his own hand without even thinking. Just instant losing his boogie woogie, but getting a very fun scene with him and Takada. And then clapping Yuji in to have that one final moment so that Yuji can take down Mahito. Even having Mahito level up in this new form, I thought it was going to be his new form from now on, but Yuji was able to take him down, and I think that was freaking awesome, using Black Flash and just having some overall amazing moves. Now, after we get into the fights, of course, we're going to have to talk about those impacts on the story, because there's so many things that happened during this whole thing that impacted the main story of this, which the first main thing in this arc is Mechamaru being the traitor that was informing Geto and Mahito of stuff, but it was all so that he could get his body back and leave his tub so he could see Miwa. But because of that, he wasn't going to actually get away from the bad guys, and they ended up killing him. But we did get some pretty freaking awesome moves with Mechamaru and getting this giant kaiju level Mechamaru fight as well. However, at least he was able to use the last will of his power to warn everyone that Gojo had been sealed, and on top of it, say his goodbye to Miwa and confess his love to her. And we find out the reason that none of his classmates other than Todo was by Shibuya is because he purposely made it so that they weren't there, because only Todo had a 99% chance of living. Everyone else probably would have died. And he just wanted to protect the woman he loved, showing that he did care, even though his classmates took offense to it. And then we had Toji versus Megumi. It was an awesome fight, which just having Megumi use his Shikigami in interesting ways, but all led into Toji stabbing him and realizing who Megumi was. His memories came back for a second there, it seemed, and asked what his last name was. And when he found out it was Fushiguro, he was proud. He was happy his son wasn't a Zenin, because that means he was never sold to the Zenin clan like he had planned originally. And that's when we learned that Megumi has a hereditary technique with his 10 Shadows technique, which we learned from Gojo that the head of the Zenin clan also had that same technique and had fought the head of Gojo's clan, who had the Limitless and 6-Eye technique, and neither of them lived because the 10 Shikigami in that list takes the life of its user. Because to summon it, you have to sacrifice your life. And of course, Megumi does it while fighting Haruta. Because Sukuna sensed it happening, he came and stopped it because he has plans for Megumi, and then destroyed Shibuya while doing it, and also saving Megumi's life at the same time. And as we continue down with the big impacts on the story, the biggest one, Yuji's pain. Because after he wakes up and then gets all the memories of Sukuna absolutely destroying Shibuya and everyone in it, he's traumatized now and has all this pain because he is a murderer, because his hands have blood on them now. He's just kind of going into his depressed era at this point, but then he also remembers that when he dies, he needs to be surrounded by people, which is what his grandfather said to him. But as he lives, everyone that he cares about that would be around him is just slowly dying. It's kind of ironic that he might not actually get to live like that. But even though he's having all this pain after seeing Sukuna kill everyone, he realizes he has the power to save people. He's strong, but he's also already taken lives with his own hands, like the cursed wombs in the Death Paintings arc. And then he says he won't lose again, and then he loses right after when Nanami dies, and then Nobara dies. They keep giving Yuji these hype moments just to rip it away and give more pain to the character. But luckily, Todo was able to rise him back up, and then even when Choso came to help him in the end, he realized he still needs to continue to fight against the curses. So I like how Yuji's kind of gone up and down during this arc. He's got a lot of pain, but it's kind of defined his character. And speaking of Nanami's death, even though his death was beautiful, and he was fighting to protect his students, doing everything he could, and all he was worried about protecting them until he realized he had to let go after seeing Haibara and trusting Yuji to take on the fight. And then we lost Nobara, who was actually a threat to Mahito for a second there until she got clapped. Todo didn't die, but he lost his arm and his boogie woogie. And I'm pretty sure Noabito is dead as well because he got put up into flames. However, I don't think Maki died. And I'm actually surprised they haven't showed her because if she did die, I feel like they would have showed her in that arc. The Cursed side lost a lot more though because Haruta got sliced by Sukuna, Jogo got killed by Sukuna, Hanami got killed by Gojo, Dagon got killed by Toji, and then Mahito got absorbed by Geto and then used in Uzumaki. And then the other people who aren't part of this, Mimiko and Nanako, died as well. But then there's still people I'm surprised lived out of all that. Like Ino still survived after getting bashed by Toji. I thought he was dead right there, but no, he somehow lived. Ijichi survived after being stabbed by Haruta. Mei survived because Wee was able to teleport them out of there. So just like so much is going on in this arc where characters were just dying left, right, and center, and I'm honestly surprised more didn't die, even though everyone keeps telling me it gets worse. So I'm both hyped and scared for what's to come, because when we talk about what's coming after the final episodes of this arc, we have Yuji's execution with Kusakabe telling Panda that he won't choose their side because he was in favor of the execution, and then Yuta making his return, which was awesome. He had this really cool return, saving the kid, and then we find out being given orders to take down Yuji, and it's all because Sukuna cut off Toge's arm during the giant fight, which I was surprised Toge lived in general because we did see
him in that huge fight scene, and I was worried he was gonna die, but he lived. But he lost his arms, which I heard from the manga readers that's only supposed to be one, so it might just been an off translation there. Mei seems to be working with someone else, so I'm curious to figure out if she was actually the big traitor amongst everything when we were trying to figure out who the real traitor was, and it was shown that it was Mekamaru. Maybe it's Mei because she only cares about money. Then you have Choso trying to protect Yuji because he's his older brother, and that reveal itself was really interesting because I was not expecting that. Somehow they're related, meaning one of them has a mother or father that are the same. However, him coming into the fight was pretty epic, just having this cool moment of Choso fighting Geto, giving us the explainer why Yuji is his brother is because when his other brothers died, he felt that pain, he felt their death, so when he killed Yuji there, he felt it, and he realized he messed up killing his own brother, and knowing that Geto was actually Noritoshi who manipulated him. But Noritoshi is only one of the names of the thing that's taken over Geto's body. Also, during that whole fight, when the Kyoto students come in, Miwa makes a pact to never hold a sword again. So after everything she did, her literal only fighting move, she made a pact to never do it again. So just nerfing the character and pushing her to the side, even though Geto used Uzumaki to stop her, and somehow she lived through all this. It's funny because Mekamaru did all this so that his classmates wouldn't go there and die, and then they almost did that literal exact thing. And then probably the biggest thing to come from these final episodes is Geto unlocking curse techniques for people like Junpei who had the ability but didn't know how to access it, and also allowing non-sorcerers to be vessels, so pretty much changing the dynamic of this world for both curses and sorcerers, making it so everyone can use this power. And also just making it so nowhere else in Japan is safe because he unleashed an absolute shit ton of curses on the world. Then we have Geto and Gojo being blamed for the Shibuya incident, and then expelling Gojo from the Jujutsu Society, and if you try to get him unsealed, it's deemed a crime. And I realized after thinking about this for a bit that the reason they're doing that, because Geto was announced dead by Gojo, but because now he's running around again and no one was there to see Gojo kill him, they assumed that Gojo was lying to him and covering it up so that his best friend could live free. But also at the same time, they just wanted a scapegoat so they didn't have to deal with it. Which is also why they sentenced Yaga to be put to death for enticing Gojo and Geto and causing the Shibuya incident, because they think he covered it up as well. And again, I think it's just another way for them to have the scapegoat, because not everyone's gonna know the little dark secrets that have actually been going on with all these characters. And like I said before, Yuta was ordered to execute Yuji, and I liked how they even pointed out during this scene that Yuta was like, well, I know he's Gojo's student, but I'm still gonna follow orders because of what he did to Toge. Showing that if Toge wasn't injured like this, Yuta probably wouldn't have taken those orders because he was Gojo's student. So I'm kind of curious to see how they deal with that going forward. This arc was really intense, and it just set up some pretty awesome stuff for season 3 with the curses running amok in Japan, having Yuji going around taking them on his own, probably Choso being with them as the brothers work together to fight, and then having Yuta try to hunt him down in the process. So I'm really looking forward to the next season and when it finally comes out. I really hope the animators do get enough time to animate it this time, because I think it'll be freaking sick. Fully animated seasons without anything that's apparently missing. But let me know, what do you think about this amazing arc and all the pain that happened during it? Please don't put any manga spoilers in the comments, but if you're an anime-only watcher, what kind of theories do you have for what's to come next? I hope you enjoyed this anime breakdown. Make sure to hit the like and the subscribe button to stay up to date with all my anime videos. So with that, thanks again for watching, and I'll talk to you later.